Well, it seems that I've been tagged again by the homie Darko from Kindles and Cakes. Go check out his channel. He's a great guy. Uh, but it seems I have been tagged once more. I don't do a lot of tags. I don't have anything against them. I often find myself being busy with other things. But I thought this week I would do things differently. Since I've been tagged in a couple of tags, I thought, why not catch up on some that actually interest me? So, yeah, let's get to it. Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and I'm back with a tag video. I'm doing the Nightclub Book Tag, as I referenced earlier in my video. And Darko, he tagged me after D tagged him, and D was tagged by someone else. I think it was John. I think John got tagged by Brian Bell, who created it. So now we know the genealogy of the tag. But yes, Brian Bell created this tag, who I had on this channel a while back. He's a cool guy. I've always enjoyed talking with him. And he used to run nightclubs back in the day. He shared a lot about it when we talked. And he did this whole nightclub book tag. So now we're doing that. And I've been tagged, and I thought it would be fun to do my own version of it, because I did think about doing like a weird like hokey dance, but I just felt stupid from doing that. So sorry guys, you're not going to see that. But I'm going to talk about the Nightclub Book Tag now and not waste any more time. So let's get into it. First question is cocktail hour. Name a book you think pairs perfectly with your favorite drink. Well, believe it or not, guys, despite my rather pale complexion and my sensitivities, I am actually a big fan of whiskey. I don't drink it all the time, but I do drink it when on special occasions like my birthday or New Year's Eve or Christmas. It's a good little a glass of Jack to help me through the days. It's very warm, it's very sour. It sometimes numbs you when you're feeling really bad. Not in that way. Don't be worried. I'm not an alcoholic. But I thought a book that really aligned itself well with my taste in whiskey, a whiskey book, if you will, a good whiskey book, would be Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men. Very much like a good whiskey, it's very hard-boiled and very tough, and it makes your insides feel warm after the end, though I don't know if I'd say a No Country for Old Men really does that. But this is a great book. I've covered it on my channel. It's very much a hard-boiled crime story, but it's so much more than that. There's a lot of discussion about how we cope with evil. There's a lot of discussion about fate, growing older. Very heartwarming stuff, as you can imagine. Yeah, this is a great book. Definitely one I often recommend people start with first for Cormac McCarthy to get a kind of a good idea of what his style is like. But this is a really good book, and it's also a good whiskey book. Again, it's very hard boiled. It's really makes you it makes you feel kind of sick if you drink it enough. So you have to take it in small doses. But No Country for Old Men, great book, and really good for my number one cocktail hour. So I'll put that down. Number two, Neon Lights. Name a book with a cover that immediately grabbed your attention, like Bright Lights in a Cup. That was pretty easy for me. I haven't actually read this book yet, but that is Deathless by Catherine M. Vellante. This is a book I've been meaning to read for a long time. A lot of my friends really like this book, and apparently Catherine Vellante is a really good author. So, and I'm a big World War II guy, so I'm probably gonna get behind this pretty well. But apparently it is a fantasy based in World War II, which sounds really interesting. I'm hoping to read this December if I find the time. But I really love the cover of this. It's really nice. It looks very, old-fashioned. I really love the back here. Like, if you can see the little roots back there. I really love... It's very atmospheric, I think. And I picked it up simply because I was intrigued by the concept. And also, the cover is really nice. So, yeah, Deathless would be my Neon Lights book. I thought it was really good. Well, I haven't read it yet, but I thought the cover was really nice, and it really captured my attention. If you guys know, I'm a bit of a cover guy. I like good covers when I have the chance. I really like them, and this one really captured my attention. So yeah, this is definitely my Neon Lights pick, Deathless. So yeah, check it out. All right. Number 3, The Bouncer, the book that what book did you have to put down because it just wasn't letting you in? That was pretty easy for me. That was Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. I did read Gun with Occasional Music, which is his detective, science fiction, weird fiction book that I read last year, and I thought was actually pretty good. Motherless Brooklyn had a pretty good concept, very much about a detective with Tourette's syndrome, and I thought, this would be a pretty good book, right? Well, for some reason, it was just one of those books that just wasn't really grabbing me. It was really, it was actually kind of driving me away from the story, and, it just wasn't really pulling me in. So I do hope to try it again at some point, because I don't really DNF. I more put books down to read later. So this was one of those books that I put down and hope to get to later. And if I don't like it, well, I guess I just don't like it. But yeah, this book just wasn't letting me in. Kicked me. It dragged me out of the club and kicked me on my ass, and I fell on my ass and wouldn't let me in. So yeah, Motherless Brooklyn would be my number 3 pick. So yeah, let me put that down. There you go. Number 4, what book would you recommend as the perfect read for someone new to the fantasy genre? Well, I'll admit, this was one of the trickier ones that I had to answer, because there's a lot of books I could choose, like Narnia, for instance, but then some people might go, but Britton, Narnia is for kids. Why would I read that? So I'm like, okay, fine. So what about Lord of the Rings? Oh, but Britton, it's a little too complicated. I would probably tell you to quit being a bitch, but okay, fine. It's too complicated. So, what book would be a good starting point for the fantasy genre? This is something that's been debated by a lot of fantasy scholars, fantasy fans. It's debated on BookTube. But I thought the one I chose would be a pretty good one, even though it might be a little dark for some. And that is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. It's kind of it's a good starting point for anyone who's interested in grimdark, for sure. There's some people who might squabble with me because I put this up, but I think that the First Law trilogy is pretty straightforward for the most part, maybe too straightforward. There's some people who says it has no plot. I disagree. But I do recommend this series because it deals with a lot of familiar archetypes, and the story is very straightforward. You don't have to really know a lot to go in, though it is kind of deconstructing old fantasy tropes such as the barbarian, the evil cripple, the chosen one trope. It's the wizard, the wise mentor trope. It's playing with a lot of those tropes, but you don't have to know that going in. But it's really good. Joe Abercrombie isn't that dark. I mean, I would definitely say he doesn't reach the levels of like a Blood Meridian or even Song of Ice and Fire for that much. It's really funny, so if you really like humor, like really dark gallows humor, which I so happen to do, I would say the Blade itself is a really good place to start. They're not very long. I mean, all 3 books are like 600 pages, which that for a fantasy book, for a fantasy trilogy, isn't really that long. At least for me, it isn't. I mean, yeah, you could probably make arguments about it, but I think that this is a good series because, again, straightforward story, plays with a lot of familiar archetypes, and plays with them in a very interesting way. So check out the First Law trilogy. They're really good books. If you're not in, I'll put it this way, if you're not sucked in to the Blade itself by the first paragraph, forget it. You're not going to get anywhere. So, there you go. There you go. There you go. That's my DJ's choice. Number 5, Disco Ball. Name a book that made you feel like you were part of a vibrant, glittering world. Well, this is a bit of an ironic pick, but I hope you can deal with me for a second. The book I picked was Perdido Street Station by China Mieville, which has become quickly one of my favorite books of all time. This is one of my favorite fantasy novels. Now, I would not call New Crobazon a vibrant, glittery world. As a matter of fact, I would probably say it's the exact opposite. It's really dark. It's really grungy. As a matter of fact, I would never stay at New Crobazon, even if you pointed a gun at my head, because it sounds like a really awful place to live. But the world in this is so well developed. The city is so meticulously crafted. It feels alive. I love the cultures in this book. I love the adventurousness of the tone. And as much as New Crobuzon is a horrifying place to live, there's also this sense of adventure and this sense of vigor where you want to know more about the city. And Mieville writes the city of New Crobuzon so descriptively, it almost feels like a character in and of itself. And I love New Crobuzon. I do remember when I read The Scar, which takes place away from New Crobuzon. I actually missed it, believe it or not. It was like it was really sad, even though New Crobuzon is a shithole, and I would not recommend anyone live there. I mean, if I made a video of fantasy worlds I would not like to live in, New Crobuzon would probably be there, but I missed it. I loved reading about it. I'll put it that way. I wouldn't live there, but I love reading about it, and I love the detail that Mieville puts into New Crobuzon. You could definitely tell that this is a setting that he's very passionate about. And New Crobuzon is one of... And I mean, I think Bozlog, I have to echo something that Jimmy said from the Fantasy Network, is probably the most underappreciated fantasy world in fantasy literature. I truly think Perdido Street Station is a masterpiece, but I think New Crobuzon is one of the best settings of a fantasy novel that I have ever read. Check it out. It's a fantastic read. So, yeah, I'll put this down. That's my number 5 pick. Perdido Street Station. So check it out. Yeah, there we go. Number 6. What book had you dancing with excitement from the first page to the last? I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Hope you guys don't mind, but I've seen some other people pick comics, so I think Brian will be fine with it. And the comic I am picking is Deadly Class by Rick Remender and Wes Craig. This comic is the reason I love comics. It has everything. Great over-the-top action. Over-the-top conspiracy. Great, just over-the-top craziness. Great plotting. Great characters. I can't say enough about Deadly Class. But if you are not hooked into this book by the first or second issue, then again, I'd recommend just not reading it at all. But the art is great. I mean, look at the art here. It's so good. I'm trying not to get to, like, inappropriate stuff. Because there's, like, sexual content. But just everything in this comic is off the walls insane. But it's also grounded with these deeply compelling and very human young characters. It's a great coming-of-age story as much as it is a over-the-top story about an assassination, a school of assassins. And it is phenomenal. I love this comic. It reminds me why I love comics. And you better believe I was dancing with excitement when I started reading this comic. And I'm actually hoping to finish this comic this year. So hopefully Remender and crew will end out strong, because this comic is fantastic. I recommend everyone should go read it. It's definitely one of my favorite comics of all time. So, yeah, Deadly Class. There you go. Number 7. This is kind of a different one. Which author would you invite to an exclusive book-themed party, and why? Oh, man, there's so many people I would do that with, like Alan Moore, or Charles Dickens, or Neil Gaiman. But if there really is one, to pick one, I would definitely pick Ray Bradbury, the late, great Ray Bradbury. Just watch his interviews, and, I've watched his interviews, I've watched him, I've seen him do stuff, and this man just had such a passion for storytelling. And he also had a deep passion for life. If I could, I would definitely use black magic to bring Ray Bradbury back from the dead, and then I would ask him about writing and life. And I'm sure that he would gladly answer many of my questions. At least, I hope so. I hope it's not like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, where he starts screaming at me to send him back to the grave. But I digress. But I would definitely invite Ray Bradbury, because I'm sure he would have a lot to say about books, and I'm sure that he would appreciate talking about books for hours on end. So yeah, Ray Bradbury would be my answer for number 7. Number 8, VIP entrance. Which book did you feel privileged to read before it became more widely popular? A bit of a downplayed answer, because this book was already kind of popular, but I thought it was kind of funny when it blew up on YouTube last year, on BookTube last year, and that is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I read this book back in 2019, and it's one of those books where I was just hypnotized by it. I've talked about it a lot, so I'll keep it brief. But love this book. I always recommend people to at least try it. I don't think now I won't guarantee that you'll like it, but if you're not hooked, well, you know what I'll say. But then I saw people like Joanna and Jimmy, and I saw Wendigoon's video that's like 5 hours long. It's ridiculous. It became kind of popular on BookTube all of a sudden, and I was really glad because I think Blood Meridian needs some love. I mean, it is not a book that like will warm the heart by any means. It's about a bunch of raving, marauding psychopaths running around murdering people, which hardly heartwarming stuff, but the way it's written and the way that McCarthy makes these, it almost feels mythical. And I was really glad to see people talking about it on BookTube. Though, of course, I was kind of envious a little bit because no one really was paying attention when I talked about those books. But I'm glad that people like Joanna and Jimmy and Wendigoon were talking about this book because I do think it's great. And though it does make me feel kind of smug. I felt a little smug about that since I was liking it before it became kind of popular. But I guess this book is already kind of popular, at least among like academics and like the intelligentsia. But it was nice to see it kind of become more popular on BookTube and see people talk about it a lot. So yeah, Blood Meridian is my answer. So I'll just put that down. Number 9. Which two characters from different books would you love to see face off in a dance battle? Let me get a drink real quick. I'll admit, this was hard, because, like, I generally don't think about that kind of stuff all that often, because, I don't know, it's not really something I think about. I mean, if you do think about that, like, just as fun, like, that's fine. I just don't really think about that often. But really, I gave it some thought, and I realized that, like, two characters really popped in my mind. One would be Locke Lamora from the Gentleman Bastard series, because I can definitely see him getting roped in to a dance battle. I imagine he has some pretty good moves. And a character from a book I'm actually reading right now, which is this book, Lonesome Dove, and that is Augustus Gus McCrae from Lonesome Dove. I could definitely see him getting roped into a dance battle because he's definitely one of those people who just wants to relax and have a good time. He might be a little old, but I think he can get down. I would definitely pay good money to see Locke and Gus McCrae face off in a dance battle on the dance floor. Though it would be kind of strange getting them together because they're from completely different settings. Anyway, I digress. Number 10. What's a book you couldn't put down and ended up reading all night? Well, not all night, but a pretty easy book for me, and that is my favorite fantasy novel of all time, American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I remember when I started reading this book, it was a April day, or I don't think it was April. I think it was either March or April 2019. I was in gym class, and generally they don't really give a shit what you do, just as long as you're there and you're doing something. So I would just sit on the bleachers and read books for most of the hour, and for some reason this book had been calling to me, and I decided to pick it up and read it. And let me tell you, I hate to sound like one of those guys, but legit from the first like page of this book, I was there. Once I read that first line about Shadow being in prison for 3 years, I was hooked. I couldn't put this book down. Aside from a couple of moments where I felt like it could have been cut out and it would have been fine, I was hooked. I wanted to know what the hell was going on. I wanted to know what Shadow and the Funky Bunch were up to. I wanted to know what Mr. Wednesday was up to. American Gods is a great book. Masterpiece. One of the greatest fantasy novels I've ever read. Definitely my midnight read of a book I just couldn't put down once I started reading it. Or at least I had a really hard time putting it down once I started it. Fantastic book. So, yeah, American Gods. Put that down. After Party. What book left you with a hangover, unable to start a new read immediately after finishing it? That's funny to bring Darko back into this because he tagged me, but I thought he would appreciate it. A book that left me with a hangover, which I'll admit it's kind of still going to this day, That is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This book is my only 5-star read that I've had this year. So far, anyway. Um, Darko and I already talked about it. Darko made a video about it, which blew up. He's very fortunate. I'm not jealous at all. But, Kindred, phenomenal book. A book that challenged me, and a book where everything feels deliberate. There is not a misstep in sight. Maybe, except for, one little bit, and it's a nitpick. This book just rocked my world, and I loved it. I loved it. It's a devastating, really sad book, but it's a really, 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 really good book, too. And Octavia Butler has gone up on my list of authors I am definitely going to read more of when I get the chance. And it took me a while to find a book to get a good rhythm on after reading Kindred, because it was such a powerful experience. But yeah, Kindred, fantastic book. Definitely one that I will be reading more of from Octavia Butler anyway, and a book everyone should go read. It's fantastic. But a book that really left me kind of discombobulated after I read it, because it was such a powerful experience. So yeah, Kindred is my number 11. Number 12, my last question here. Oh man, late night conversations. Which book left you thinking deeply or wanting to discuss it with others late into the night? That's another hard one, because there were a couple books I could have chosen, like some of the ones I mentioned before, like Blood Meridian, American Gods, Perdido Street Station. I tend to like a lot of books that really make me think about it and want to discuss it with others in great detail. But the book I chose, which will probably be the shock of no one, is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. The way that Nabokov plays with your perception, plays with your beliefs about the world, and how he really messes with the audience's perception is something that has stuck with me ever since I read Lolita. The way that he uses an unreliable narrator in this story is unbelievable. And it's beautiful, it's disgusting, it's profane, it's profound. I really could talk about Lolita all night if you really got me wound up into the mood, because that sounded really bad. I apologize. But Lolita, fantastic book. And definitely one I have thought very deeply about, and one I have had conversations with people about, because it is a book that demands deep conversation after you're done reading it. So, yeah, Lolita. Great book. Highly recommended. Well, that is all I got for the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So, people to tag. I guess I should get that through before I get to the outro stuff. People to tag. I will be tagging my good friend Jason Furman, because, I love tagging him and stuff. I do look forward to the thumbnail if he actually makes this video. It'd be really fun to see him in disco garb. Carol from the Falcon Reads, Carol Wainwright, great guy. I don't know if he would do this, but definitely tagging him. Colin from Colin's Corner, great guy. He's a friend of the channel. Would definitely love seeing him do this. And Ben from Bingus Khan. I like tagging him and stuff, because I just like tagging him and stuff. He's a great guy. But it would also be fun to see him do disco stuff. See him in disco garb. So, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this tag video. I definitely enjoyed making it. If you guys want to hang out with me, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can also find me on Instagram. I just started my Instagram back up. I'll link that down below if you want to come follow me on there. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed making it. And if you want to check out Brian's original video to see kind of how this tag works, I will link that down below as well. Thank you, Darko, for tagging me in this. This was a lot of fun. It was a little complicated in parts, but it was fun to do. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, bye-bye.